Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life, and I was finally able to finish my 5-day trip. And during that trip, I was finally able to do some extensive T-Satellite testing. Now, for those of you who may be new to this video, you're not familiar with T-Satellite. That is the T-Mobile Starlink partnership using Starlink's satellites. And the reason I say extensively and finally is because I've been on several trips this month and I could not connect to T-Satellite whatsoever. But now I've been able to test it extensively, where this was actually my main connection for 7 hours total. Right? This wasn't just something where I went for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, shot a quick video. No. This was my main connection for 7 hours total. 5 hours of tubing on a river. It was called Salt River Tubing in Arizona. Between those two mountains, there was no native T-Mobile coverage whatsoever. So T-Satellite was my only connection. Now, what I will say, for those of you who may be new to the channel or this video, I do have T-Mobile's top plan, which is the Go 5G or 5G Experience Beyond, whatever the plan is. I have the top plan, so I have this feature included. For those of you who do not have the top plan, you are going to have to pay $10 a month per line to add this feature. Now, like I said, this was my main connection for 7 hours. Otherwise, if I did not have this, I would have nothing. There would have been no service. Now, I would have connected to Apple's Global Star, I believe it's what it's called. But even that, after the second year free, that's going to endure a charge through Apple One. Right? So you're going to pay for that at some point too. So without that T-Satellite, I wouldn't have any coverage. So I'm going to raise some red flags, right? And I'll share with you some pictures. This is where I was located for the river tubing, right? Like you can see big mountains. And then in these next pictures, I was at Rock Slide State Park, I believe is what it's called. It's about 7 or 8 miles outside of Sedona, Arizona. And again, same scenario here, T-Satellite the entire time spent at the state park, and T-Satellite the entire time spent tubing. Now, why the red flags before we get into how it performed? AT&T, I didn't bring Verizon, but I did see Verizon, a Verizon tower. AT&T, my friend had AT&T that was with me. She had native coverage the entire time at both locations. Again, for me, that is a problem. This is a competitive environment. This is a service that you're paying for, which is in price very comparable, if not more, than what AT&T and Verizon charge you, right? So that's, I mean, your views can be different. You can leave them in the comments. But until that changes, this is a problem. AT&T had, in fact, as crazy as this sounds, you guys can see the mountains and everything. AT&T had 5G plus at this picture that you see here. They had C-band while I was connected to T-Satellite. We all know today that's only messaging. There is no data or nothing yet. So that's a red flag. I got to point it out. This place that you see here, this next picture, AT&T was LTE, 2 bars, native coverage, calls, FaceTime, everything flawless, no issues. T-Mobile, T-Satellite. If you guys get the picture, you guys see the canopies, you see the people. There is way too many people at this location to be supported by just satellite, the T-Satellite. So again, in my view, this is just my view, my opinion, This is not acceptable. T-Mobile has to figure out how to get native coverage there. It's the only way, right? Messaging still worked, but when we get to that part, I'll discuss that more. But this amount of people, I mean, we're talking just in this area, there was like 500 people total, because they told us at the front they can hold up to 500 people before the place gets packed. You can't throw, and not everybody, of course, has T-Mobile, but you can't throw that many people onto satellite. That's just not a good scenario. Off the grid, middle of nowhere, that's fine. But this requires a cell site, no matter how you view it. They need to figure out how to cover those areas natively. Even the tubing has a lot of people. And T-Satellite, although it did work, it's not ideal for these places. It's too close to the city where it's accessible by too many people to just cover it by T-Satellite. So I wanted to, and Verizon, I didn't bring Verizon with me, but I saw their sites, right? I saw the towers, they were there. So again, that's a red flag. 2 times back to back for hours that I spot T-Satellite and the competition has native coverage. That's a no-no in my book. I told you guys this very early on, and I maintain the same opinion. That is a no-no. T-Mobile cannot have that happen. It should be the other way around. T-Satellite, right, because they offer it to Verizon and AT&T customers, T-Satellite should work and give people some type of service when Verizon and AT&T don't have anything, right? And there were some slight areas where I did have service and the others didn't through T-Satellite, but it was insignificant. It wasn't something where I would go on a video and say I didn't have service for an hour on AT&T, but I was on T-Satellite, go get T-Mobile, right? That's not the case. It was like maybe like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just not big enough. And then, of course, when the other players get AST up and running, that'll be a thing of the past. So that is a problem for T-Mobile, right? I will throw that in. That is a big problem for T-Mobile to support a good amount of traffic with satellite when the rest have native coverage. That did tick me off a bit. I told you guys when I saw other people reporting, like, hey, I'm using T-Satellite, but AT&T and Verizon have native coverage, I knew back then that the service was not used correctly. And what I mean by that is T-Mobile is using it to cover way too many white spaces that need to be filled in with towers. And I know the greenfield builds are happening, but they need to happen a bit quicker. And maybe those areas I've been to should have been natively covered for a while, right? That's an argument that can be made or debated. So yeah, the connection was fine. It was stable. I never lost it once. Like when I was on it, as you guys will see in this shot, when I was connected, I was connected. Even going down the stream of the river, I was connected to T-Satellite. What I did notice, like I said, it was an extensive time, SMS works the best. It is the quickest texting that connection will allow. It's instant. You send, boom, 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 boom. RCS was kind of a nightmare, I will say. That was tough. iMessages did work, but it did take some time to send those messages at times. At times it worked quick, where it says like delivered, and then at other times you would see the blue mark at the top and it took a while to send. Right, so SMS is definitely the way to go if you're on this connection. So as soon as you connect to this and you're like, oh, I need to send some messages out, I would send them as text messages. I would send them as SMS if I were you. That's just a suggestion based off the experience that I had. Now, MMS, right, picture messaging did not work at all. I know some have achieved success with that, but that did not work at all for me. That was not a thing, like nothing sent until I got back to native coverage on either location. So that did not really work well for me. Could work for you, could have worked for you already. For me, it did not, right? Maybe there was just too many people. Like I said, these places were quite crowded, where if and we all know T-Mobile has solid market share now, where if I was connected to T-Satellite, the other customers were too, that had the highest plan, right? If they didn't, they probably had nothing, right? They probably had no service at all. And many people that have been going there for quite some time, they probably already know, oh yeah, this area T-Mobile doesn't work, right? Some are okay with it. Some, of course, have switched to Verizon and AT&T over the years. So calling failed immediately, so that's still a no-go. We kind of understand that, so no need to go into that too much. But I want to try to get back to these areas in October when we have more of an official launch of other services, like maybe calling, maybe data. And I want to see how the network, the satellite connection responds when that happens, when there's people there, right? I want to see, because and I know October is kind of already in the fall, so it may not be as hot, so it may not be as many people tubing, but I want to see how that works, because now I know where I need to go to be connected to that connection only for multiple hours. So it's definitely interesting. Can I recommend the service at the price point? It's tough. It's really, really a tough call to pay $10 per month per line when there's other carriers that have native coverage. Now, is that going to be the case everywhere? Not, probably not. There's going to be some areas that T-Mobile with T-Satellite is going to cover you when no one else has anything. But man, they are using this service, I don't want to say far beyond its limits, but they're covering right now too many white spaces where the others have native coverage, and just to give the customers something in the meantime so they don't have no service. But again, you have to either be on the highest plan or you have to pay that $10 extra per month. I just don't know at this time if I can say that's justifiable. Not at this time. Maybe once the MMS gets better, maybe once they get some data throughput, even if it's 1 meg, 2 meg, whatever, then we'll revisit. We'll see what that looks like. But again, I will point out, if they're going to, even when data is available, if they're going to use T-Satellite to cover these types of places where there's traffic, that's not going to be the best experience that you can possibly get for that area. It's going to be on AT&T and Verizon. That's where you can get the best possible experience. And that's just me being honest. I have no hat in the race. This is just objectivity, right? This is a major problem, right? And maybe one or two of the greenfield builds ends up in these two places that I was at, and then that'll close that, right? That'll close the gap there. But I guarantee you, if I'm seeing this in just these two places, and we now know T-Satellite is launched commercially, there's going to be many more other state parks, national parks, forests, where this T-Satellite is the only connection for T-Mobile, where others have native coverage. So T-Mobile is trying to close the gap too fast, if that makes sense, right? The whole best network, the huge campaign that we're seeing now, billboards, TV, social media, they're trying to force it. It's too soon. T-Satellite was meant from the very beginning in 2022 to cover non-terrestrial areas, the Everglades, the top of the mountains, like the tippity top. It was meant to cover those places that never had any native coverage from anyone. Now, T-Satellite is covering areas in mountains that are like 16 miles from the city, where Verizon and AT&T have native coverage. Like I said, I would not raise the red flag or a red flag if Verizon and AT&T had no service. If they didn't have coverage there, this conversation would be totally different. And again, these two areas, this trip was random, spontaneous. I received the message Wednesday night, Thursday morning, I'm on the road, 5 days. I didn't even check the coverage maps, to be honest. I just went to the areas to see what was out there, and then I got T-Satellite for the first time. I got excited, but then I saw AT&T had native coverage. That was a downer, because if they do, T-Mobile should too. That's how it's got to be now. You're paying similar costs. You're pushing best network. You gotta have native coverage, right? So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Look forward to reading them. I'm a bit backed up on content, so I'm gonna push that out to you guys so you guys can see, get brought up to speed. But I can't recommend T-Satellite at this time for the cost. I just can't. That's just my view, my opinion. If you want to pay, of course, that's your choice. Or maybe you're already on the highest plan. You're just gonna make use of it where it works. But for now, I cannot recommend T-Satellite. So let me know your thoughts. Like, share, subscribe. See y'all in the next one. Peace.